Chile and New Zealand are two countries in the southern hemisphere of the world and in the same latitude, sharing many geographical similarities. New Zealand is an island country in the southwestern Pacific Ocean. It consists of two main land masses, the North Island and the South Island, and more than 700 smaller islands. 10,000 kilometers at the other end of the Pacific Ocean, in the western South America, is the Republic of Chile. It occupies a long, narrow strip of land between the Andes to the east and the Pacific Ocean to the west. Both countries share common characteristics such as forests, mountain ranges, the Antarctica, and the most important, the Pacific Ocean. This makes the ocean a major player that either benefits or affects both countries. Sea level rise is therefore a threat and a challenge for both countries. But to what extent could sea level rise affect Chile and New Zealand? There are several studies that make projections of sea level rise under different scenarios between now and the year 2100. The projections made by IPCC and others can serve as a tool for governments and local councils to assess risk and make decisions for the future. The Chilean territory is classified in three main zones: Insular Chile, Mainland Chile, and Antarctica. Mainland Chile is not a high-risk location due to its high-profile coastline. However, impacts from sea level rise are expected in areas such as cities, ports, and beaches. The major risks for cities will be floodings. Low-lying areas in cities like Concepcion could be flooded to a depth of 2 to 3 meters in a scenario of 60 centimeter rise in sea level. It is likely that the percentage of at-risk urban areas will increase due to population growth and real estate projects that are currently under development. Damage to heritage sites of high historical value is also anticipated. Changes in maritime climate conditions resulting from climate change has been affecting a number of ports throughout Chile. This can be measured simply by observing the availability of ports and downtime due to swell. The impact cannot be determined with certainty, given that as a result of their locations, some ports could improve their productivity while others could get worse. It is estimated that between Arica, the northernmost city of Chile, and the Chacao Canal, the beaches will experience average recession of 3 to 23 meters due to the effect of changes in waves and sea level according to projected scenarios between 2026 and 2045. The estimated economic damage for 6 beaches in the Valparaíso region only is $500,000 a year due to the risk of erosion caused by climate change. Insular Chile is a scattered group of oceanic islands of volcanic origin located in the Chilean Sea, at some distance from mainland Chile and which are under the sovereignty of Chile. Rapa Nui, Archipelago Robinson Crusoe are among the most vulnerable places in terms of natural disasters. According to studies carried out in 2011, Anaquena, Rapa Nui's main beach, is at great risk of suffering constant flooding by the end of the century in a scenario of 0.8 meter increase in sea level. Easter Island historical and cultural heritage could be affected, mainly the moais located on the coastline and cliffs at risk of erosion. It is estimated that the island ports and coves, which are generally for very small boats, will be subject to flooding during high tide, generating damage to coastal infrastructure.
Orongo is a very special site. It's the last part of our ancient culture, the last changes of the culture. It's in danger because it's right on the top of a cliff. As the ocean rises, there's more waves hitting the bottom part of the cliff. And all the weight that you have on top of that is going to collapse and it's going to bring down the site. That's a huge engineering thing that we need to design quickly to protect that.
And do you have the resources to do that?
We don't have the resources. It's millions and millions of US dollars.
In New Zealand, most of the population lives off the coast, and many of its cities are located in coastal areas. Climate change poses an increasing risk to these coastal areas, in particular because sea level rise increases their exposure to coastal hazards. This risk is further compounded by ongoing development in population growth in coastal areas along with rising property values. The most likely scenarios for New Zealand are departure up or down on the global average because subsidence or tectonic movements, increased coastal erosion, salinization of adjacent fresh water, drainage problem in adjacent low-lying areas, coastal squeeze, coastal erosion, and permanent inundations, alteration in sediment movement, coastal upwelling of cooler-rich, nutrient-rich ocean waters, lowland river flooding, and deterioration of water quality. A 2015 study projects the damage that a sea level rise of 1.5 meters would cause to cities and public infrastructure. Cities like Auckland, Wellington, Dunedin, and so on will be affected in the roads infrastructure, homes, and railways. The logical question to pose here is what's causing the rise in the sea level, and if we go into more detail, we might realize that it's all connected. Small alteration here will be causing an adverse effect there, making this a complex problem to address. Human-induced climate change is directly linked to the amount of fossil fuels burned, aerosol releases, and land alterations from agriculture and deforestation. The beginning of the Industrial Revolution shows a major spike in temperature levels and adverse climate events. Before the Industrial Revolution, the atmospheric concentration of carbon dioxide was around 280 parts per million, but through the burning of fossil fuels like coal, oil, and natural gas, humans have added carbon dioxide to the atmosphere. The concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere now exceeds 400 parts per million, following an upward trend that needs to be stopped. Mountain glaciers account for a third of the sea level rise in the last 60 years. The glaciation in high mountains is a phenomenon that has been accelerating in recent decades. The shrinking and thinning of glaciers is not only a contributor to sea level rise, it is also a major threat to cryospheric ecosystem and communities. It is estimated that the loss of ice from Antarctic ice caps and glaciers will contribute to 6% of global sea level rise. Earth's climate has always been driven by the amount of incoming and outgoing energy. Without the influence of humans, the Earth has natural cycles that drive the climate. The major factors contributing to Earth's natural climate change are determined by the axial tilt Earth's orbit around the Sun, the output of energy from our Sun, the ocean natural cooling and warming cycles, and the constant variability in volcanic activity. Another factor to consider are the glacial advances and retreats that occurred throughout Earth's history. Although the governments of Chile and New Zealand have in different ways taken measures to mitigate the future impacts of sea level rise, it is necessary to realize that it's not enough to prepare for an uncertain future. It is also necessary to be informed and work together. In Chile, organizations such as Fundación Glaciares Chilenos have done important work in raising awareness about the protection of the cryosphere for our healthy coexistence with the planet. The Chilean Antarctic Institute has played for years a fundamental role in scientific research that help us to solve complex questions and disseminating valuable information every month to educate the population on climate change issues. Finally, instances such as those provided by Winds of Change allow us to realize that we are not alone in working to tackle these common problems, that international collaboration is possible, and that language or culture are not a barrier when there is a will to create a better future.